All right, now on to magics. Spell casting is something we find a lot in our community. There are a lot of casters around. We do not promote spell casting. We want to teach it. We want to have a caster come aboard and teach spell casting because it's something that it's tricky business, and that's why we don't endorse it or promote it, or we try to stay away from it ourselves. We're not really going to frown upon it. It's a natural practice. Everybody has the ability to create from out of nowhere. Everybody is the creator. Everybody has Kamui Siari Alsi. Everybody has the power of heaven. They are the power of heaven. We are all creative forces. We are all the creative force aspects of it. So it's a natural practice. There's nothing wrong with it. All of you religious folk out there who think that it's fucking demon work, it's not. I mean, that exists. People do shit like that. And I guess you could call it black magic, but even there is crossing a line, really. It's just creation. It's pure creation. It is the power of heaven granted by God, you could say. But in fact, it is God. It is what God is, the creation, the creative force at the source of all things. It's just that. It's pure creation. And it can be used in any way you see fit. You can do anything you want with it. Spell casting is essentially what's going on with spell casting is that your brain being the transceiver, your brain and your nervous system being the transceiver that catches, an element of the larger grid, I suppose you could say, that the energy that creates all things, the blanket of oneness, the one energy, the one soul, it tunes into your brain and your nervous system and it becomes you. It works your body and you have these thought processes, you have these habits, these patterns, these personality traits that make you, essentially who you are. And you can create any person you want. It's just like playing a fucking RPG game like Skyrim or whatever, Fallout. Make your own character. And that's what you're doing here is creating your own person. And your person, depending on who you are, depending on how you tune your signature and what values and aspects you have in play making up your persona, it reflects. You initiate a feedback loop from the world that's going to be consistently giving you a reflection of who and what you are. Now, this is all the laws of attraction, and the laws of attraction essentially are at the base of what physics is. Physics is determined and held in place by a universal consciousness. We all understand what goes up must come down. We all understand, left, right, forward, backward. We understand three dimensions. And we live in a four-dimensional world. We understand the objective experience of three dimensions from the fourth dimensional perspective. And so, given this worldwide, you know, accepted understanding, we have physics in play. And relativity is an existence concept, the existence concept that governs how time operates for the most part. And it's, memory, gravity, relativity. Those are the three elements that make up existence. Now, gravity is directed by relativity, and you have an innate force of directive relativity that you can make use of, and that's what the laws of attraction are. The laws of attraction give you feedback from the world based on what you are, not based on what you think or feel. What you think and feel consistently is going to make up what you are, but that feedback comes from what you are. Again, an example that I've given so many times is if you say you want something, that doesn't provide it because you're implying that you don't have it. When you say that you want it, that implies you don't have it. And so you tell the world, basically, I don't have this. And the world responds by saying, okay, you don't have it. That's pretty much how it works. It's a basic of it. Spellcasting is using tools and such to perform a ritual task that convinces your brain that something is going to happen. It's a manner by which you can cause for your brain to be convinced of something so totally. It's reality to lean towards a probability that it happens and actually cause for that feedback to occur. You're essentially hacking and tricking your brain into producing something. It's a mind control tactic, spellcasting, but it's very tricky because it's fixed. When you use these tools and you perform these rituals, it can cause negative feedback. It can cause damage to people or to yourself. It can have all kinds of wacky side effects that you're unaware of because there are implications in play. Experience is made of implications. What you imply is true becomes true. And this is most especially effective in your communications with people. When you say things that imply certain things, especially with all the texting we do nowadays, we use text messages to communicate all the time. Anything you say on that text message, you've written into stone, and those words are powerful. And every word has aspects attached to the value of it that cause for perception to shatter and to fracture and move in different directions and hit different implications. There are implications attached to those aspects attached to that value. And so you could use a certain word and that other person can see that word, read it, and get all kinds of ideas as to what it means to them. And that's why you got to be careful with the words you use, especially when they're written, because then that person's going to repeatedly see that again and again. And that's falls into how spot casting operates via texting. But we're talking spell casting now. Spell casting is the ritual use of tools and objects and rituals and routines to produce an effect by convincing you that it's going to happen. It's pretty much you're tricking yourself into believing in something. Now, spot casting is a little different. Spot casting is where your your body language or your wording or certain glyphs. I'll see the shifting glyphs as it's called in our in the spotting heritage going back, which spotters is a term we came up with. You're not going to find that elsewhere, but that's a term we came up with for our heritage, which is just basically everyone that's ever worked in this way, that's communicated with the world, that's gained a relationship with the world directly, and passed it along to others to preserve the tradition. That's spotters. But spot casting is using glyphs, perhaps, and the values in play, the aspects, that's what the shifting glyphs are. It's the world telling a story. That's what the shifting glyphs are. That's what Aussie means. And we can not only communicate with that, but we can communicate with it in such a way as to alter it and to manipulate its functionality. We can even coordinate synchronicities by communicating with it simply by having faith that it's going to respond in the correct manner, and it will. It always does. The world has our back so long as we maintain protocol. Spot casting is convincing somebody else's brain to do something. You're rebounding off of somebody, and in most cases what you're going to be doing there is priming somebody with certain values, kind of clandestinely, a little sneakily, kind of sneaking a value in there via implication. By the words you use, you sneak an implication into somebody else's mind, and then later on you have something, you arrange for something in the environment to trigger that and cue them, and that lights up in their mind and it becomes their idea, that implication, and they run with it, as I've said before. But using like glyphs, for example, using runes for casting, that's a method of spot casting. And the reason that it works is because we do all have this underlying universal consciousness. There is one soul here, one mind, and we do all have that universal consciousness. Your brain has all that information in it. You are a holographic entity. Every piece contains the information of the whole. And so your brain knows what things mean. If it means a certain thing to enough people, if the majority of the world, if it reaches a critical mass and the majority of the world understands this certain something to mean a certain something, then that's what it means. And your brain is going to recognize it as meaning that whether you do or not. When you use body language or use certain words and implications, that's a little trickier. That's using aspects, and you can actually design that to mean a certain something on the spot, that hence spot casting. But for the most part, that's why it works. Because the universal consciousness is aware of what it means, of what it's supposed to be doing. And your brain will react to it. It will trigger values in your brain that will have a subconscious reaction. And the subconscious is controlling everything. The subconscious mind is the oversoul that you're communicating with. That's the God entity. This universal subconscious mind. And of course, individual peoples have certain values programmed into their subconscious mind, either, through experience by themselves or by other people, whatever the case may be. And sometimes, a lot of times, you might run into synchronicities that are actually designed by other spotters in place. Sometimes they do this without even knowing it. Sometimes they're playing on you. I've had spotters watching me before, being tricky, but they're always helpful for the most part. We run into some people who are, using the dark side of the force, as it were, but it's a lot rarer than you might think. They're not hiding around every corner. And for the most part, we are the majority operatives that are good natured and we're trying to do good for the world. We are heavily the majority, but there are a lot of careless assholes out there that don't even give a shit, that aren't really involved in the reality of life. They're kind of playing their own game. And then, of course, there are spotters that are actively manipulating things in a negative manner. You run into that. But for the most part, that's how magics and casting works. That's why it works. It's designed into the programming. The existence concept, the operating system of life is designed to perform certain functions that you can, trigger in certain ways using the brain, using directive relativity and your own conceptual belief system for the most part. So there is such things as channeling and fusion and summoning, entities that exists. That's real, but it's very, very rare for the most part. When you run into people claiming to be doing that sort of thing, it's bullshit. Divination is a different kind of casting, so we'll speak to that in another video. We'll cut this here though. That's essentially an idea of, you know, giving you an idea of something that's going on in the world that maybe you're not aware of. Well, everybody knows what magic is for the most part, but they don't understand that it's actually a real active principle in life, and there is a reason why. So there you have it. Um, be careful what you do. Be careful with that texting. It's written stone, and especially be careful with that spell casting. Like I said, we're not going to frown upon it, but it's not recommended. It can be dangerous in the fact that it's a solid, fixed 5x5 presence. That it's it's not very easily reversed if something goes wrong. So be careful all. Love you guys. Hilo Salai Terbi Uni Siar Namaste.